Unconventional storytelling is the theme of the day, as Two Witches tells a different kind of anthology of sorts, with unique interconnections. This is M.L. Miller Fright's Best in Horror Countdown 2022 through 2023. Counting down the best in horror within the window of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023.
Number 11.
Two Witches was released on October 1st, 2022. It's available on demand from Arrow Films.
It's directed by Pierre Tsigaridis and written by Pierre Tsigaridis, Kristina, Klebe, and Maxime Rancon. Two Witches tell two interconnected tales of encounters with the unknown. In one, a newly pregnant woman named Sarah, played by Belle Adams, becomes paranoid that an evil presence is stalking her and threatening to steal her baby, and uses a Ouija board in order to hopefully get rid of the evil spirit. In a second tale, a socially awkward student named Masha, played by Rebecca Kennedy, attempts to connect with her roommate Rachel, played by Kristina Klebe, who only ends up scaring her away with stories of her grandmother, who claims she is a witch. Both stories merge together in strange and terrifying ways. Two Witches is quite an effective shocker of a movie. I call it a shocker because the most effective scares come from jump cuts. But instead of these cuts being false scares like a cat jumping through a window or a wind blowing open a door, the sudden cuts that punctuate a suspense-filled buildup are damn horrifying. They pay off. These cuts usually jump to a grotesque and twisted face way too close to the screen for my comfort. Now I will say that this technique is used more than a few times throughout Two Witches, but I'll also admit that this film got me every mother-lovin' time. This film made me a jittery mess by the time I finished it, as I scanned the shadows and tried to peer around corners, hoping I wouldn't see another creepy-ass face. Some might criticize Two Witches for being repetitive with its shocks, but when they work as effective as they do, I don't mind the redundancy. What helps is that Two Witches is separated into two distinct stories that occasionally intertwine together with overlapping cast members, locations, and monsters. It's got a Pulp Fiction multiple plot lines vibe, though it only tells two tales and an epilogue. None of the stories overstay their welcome and do a great job of telling a complete story on its own. It helps that the cast is great. The true standout is Rebecca Kennedy as Masha, who may not be the most likable character, but damn, Kennedy does a great job of being a nutcase. Seeing her alternate from a doe-eyed innocent to a screaming nightmare is all kinds of fun. Kristina Klebe has a writing credit on Two Witches, but she's also always a powerhouse on the screen. Ever since the excellent Proxy, she's been a character actor worth following, and while her part here is small, it's crucial to the story. I also really like the star of the first segment, Belle Adams, who is pissed off at her husband and crabbily pregnant most of the time, but still manages to be sympathetic all the way through. Dina Silva also does a great job in a smaller role as an occult enthusiast and plays a big part in some very horrifying scenes. There's an overall dangerous feeling that permeates Two Witches. It has a lot of giallo elements with extreme lighting, characters that act off-kilter and bizarrely, and extended shots of people staring at foreboding things. Director Pierre Tsigaridis seems to have this fascination with the twisted and grotesque faces of the witches that never got old for me. Plus, the film has one electrifying scene of horror after the next, threaded together to make one effective horror film. The best thing is that there's a promise of a sequel. As though Two Witches finishes its tale, it teases another dive into witchy darkness with an after-credits sequence and a to-be-continued tag. After surviving this spine-tingling shockaroo, I say bring on another installment of Two Witches.
The Czech Republic's REPULSE bucks conventional storytelling, yet is successful at telling a complete tale nevertheless. REPULSE, aka HRANA ZLOMU, was released on July 25th, 2023. It's streaming on Screambox. It's written and directed by Emil, Krizka. REPULSE is a weird little number. It takes place over the span of about 2 days, telling two tales about two families. But if splitting this movie into two narratives focusing on two families isn't odd enough, REPULSE also tells these tales in a non-linear way, each scene telling the story a little earlier or a little later in the narrative, both getting closer to a chance encounter between the two storylines. So while there are all kinds of other messed up things happening here, writer-director Emil Krizka makes it a challenge to follow narratively, especially if you aren't paying attention. I think because these two stories are so simple on their own, it makes for a movie that isn't going to lose attentive viewers. Repulse plays with the linear narrative we often take for granted. Telling these stories in a straightforward fashion would have been quite bland and not really given the climax of each storyline a chance to resonate as they did. I'm being vague to avoid spoilers because these two tales are pretty simple. One narrative follows an inattentive husband in a loveless marriage who comes home to find a man in his wife's bed. The other is about an abducted woman being held by a man-child who wears animal masks and his equally twisted mother who likes to watch. While the latter family is very disturbing on the surface, especially since it seems the abducted woman has lived with the mother and son for quite some time, and some very disturbing things have occurred in that time, the first story about the loveless marriage proves to be equally strange, with a quieter, no less destructive conflict going on. I guess if there's a theme going on here, it's the nihilistic view that everyone is messed up in their own way. Sure, everyone doesn't wear a bird mask while trying to procreate with a prisoner while one's mother is watching and cheering it all on, but the way the husband refuses to touch his wife, even to the point of wearing leather gloves, is pretty messed up as well. They're just two different extremes. One polite and distant, the other brash and invasive. That's at least what I got from Repulse. It's quite the disturbing little number that I saw days ago and can't seem to shake. On top of the odd narrative choices and strange characters, Repulse also has very little dialogue, relying on facial expressions, close-ups, and broad actions to tell the entire tale. Though all of this narrative cross-cutting might have rang pretentious in the wrong hands, it surprisingly works here as I found both tales to be intriguing, as well as when the two narratives collide. At least I can say that Repulse is unlike anything I've seen in quite a while, which is something I can't say about 90% of the films that I usually see. As always, feel free to agree, disagree, or how about you play along at home and give me your own picks for your favorite horror movies. It's October, so let's talk horror. Come back tomorrow for the next level in the Best in Horror Countdown. Be sure to hit all of those pertinent bells and whistles down below, and you'll never miss a post. Happy Halloween, folks.